Hello and welcome to Donington Park. It's Championship Finals weekend for the Arrowpak Euro Saloons and Sportscars. Now this is an open series, which is to say there's an eclectic mix of cars. We've got everything from pretty much production-based saloons right the way through to some exotic machinery. Amongst the eclectic field of machinery competing this weekend, a couple of old super touring cars.
It's a 1997 British touring car, as driven by David Leslie. I think on the first time he actually took the car out, he scored a fourth position with it. And I think they won the championship that year, the first debut year for a Nissan in the United Kingdom in the BTCC. A very, very credible fifth. The car is fantastic to drive. I mean, it's a proper thoroughbred racing car. We've had a few problems with reliability this year, which I think is probably testament to the fact that the car is upwards of 15 years old. The thing is with touring cars, the old super tours, they're quite highly strung pieces of kit. So you have to keep on top of the maintenance. We've had a few gearbox issues. They've continued today, sadly, through qualifying, which has left me right the way down. I think 20th or something. I daren't look; it just makes me angry. But yeah, I think we're really low down on the grid. So it's going to be quite hard to work our way through. So me and the team have our fingers crossed.
The other super tourer is being driven by Derek Palmer. Despite tricky damp conditions in qualifying, he'll start 6th on the grid for race 1.
This is a 1999 Nissan Primera Super Tourer. It won the British Championship in 1999, and we're running it here this weekend. It's still in the same livery as it was back in i.a.w, so yeah, it's cool. This is only the second race we've done. We've had a couple of engine problems, sort of small misfires, which have been kind of plaguing us. But at the second race at Anglesey, we started last and we actually won the class by quite a significant margin. In qualifying today, we had the same kind of engine trouble, but we still qualified 6th. I think with the track being damp, it hindered the bigger power cars a little, so we could still kind of put in a sensible time. So we seem to have cured it now, so fingers crossed for the race, it's completely on song.
Competing alone in Class E for the smaller engined production and production modified cars is the highly experienced Chris Boone.
It's a Honda Civic Type R. It was originally built for the Nordschleife 24-hour races, but the people who built it decided not to do that, so I've owned it for 4 years. It was raced by my nephew last year in the same championship and he won the class. And I've come out of retirement to have a few races and a bit of fun rather than wielding the spanners at weekends. So that's nice little busman's holiday now for doing this. Despite being in a class by myself, I have a challenge where I try and beat the next class up. So that's the Clios, and even today with the difficult qualifying, I've managed to get ahead of a number of the Class C cars, so ones you'd expect to be further ahead. There's a good number of medium to high speed corners here, which is good for my car, and potentially I've got a chance of keeping up with them as well.
Piloting one of the Seat Cupras in the field is Nick Hayes, the overall Euro Saloons and Sports Car champion back in 2010. He arrives at the season finale, having already wrapped up this year's Class C title.
We've had a few ups and downs this year, but yeah, consistency is the main priority, and yeah, the car is good and consistent.
Fielding such a wide array of cars can be challenging, but there are also many positive aspects.
There's always someone on the grid to race with, so whether you're having a good day or a bad day, you've always got somebody to race with, and it just makes for enjoyable racing.
It makes you have to work to pass someone and think about what you're doing. You have to really plan your move quite far ahead in order to pull it off, possibly. So yeah, I mean, it helps build your racecraft for sure. You really have to think about what you're doing if you're going to pull a pass.
It can be a struggle at times, like the first couple of laps can be quite hairy, obviously, because we can carry a lot more corner speed than them. It does tend to back up quite a bit, but you find after 4 laps it tends to spread out and you tend to be competing more with the cars within your class. It's a great series. All the people in it are, they're all really friendly and they're all good driving standards.
Yeah, it's great. It's got a place for everybody, to be honest. There's a wide variety of cars, so that appeals to a lot of people. But there's also a wide variety of driving talents, some of which are very good, some of which people are learning to dice in quite big fields. But overall it's a great fun championship, lots of camaraderie and people prepared to help each other out.
Lots of cars on the grid, good racing, that's what it's all about really. Different cars racing together and you get different results at different circuits and everyone can come and race and join us, it doesn't really matter, so that's what it's all about. 31 on the grid, fantastic. We started the year with similar sort of grids, so we've done really well, we're very lucky.
Joining the regulars will be 2 guest drivers, except they're not regular drivers, they're competition winners, having proven their exceptional ability to drive virtual cars on games consoles. Russia's Mark Szozinski and Germany's Wolfgang Reip have won a scholarship with the PlayStation Nissan GT Academy.
In August I win GT Academy Russia race camp and I'm here. We have a driver development program now, 3 months, and we prepare to race in Dubai 24 hours. Before I sit on my sofa and play in computer game, you know, and now I drive real car. It's big difference here, you know, because it's amazing feeling, speed and sound. It's great, yeah, it's big difference.
OK, so the first race of the weekend about to get underway. Gary Preble and Dave Cockell on row 1, Andy Robinson and Vaughan Fletcher on row 2. Then it's Wayne Schofield, Derek Palmer, Chris Huntley and Keith Butcher completing the top 8. On board with Andy Robinson then, ready for the rolling start. Up ahead is the pole position car, Gary Preble in the Mitsubishi Evo, 0.8 of a second quicker than anybody else in qualifying, but it's the race that counts. Here we go then, they thunder down towards Redgate Corner for the first time in this race. Good start for Gary Preble, on board with Andy Robinson, who tucks in behind him, and a slide there for the man who leads the race. Gary Preble has gone into the gravel trap at Redgate Corner, so has the Ginetta of Keith Butcher, so has the Mazda of Steve Putt, and Gary Preble got out of the gravel trap. Where has he come back in? 7th, he's down to 7th place. So Andy Robinson leads, Dave Cockell in the Escort, he's 2nd, then it's a Subaru of Vaughan Fletcher, and then in 4th place it's Wayne Schofield, and just going through up to 5th place there. You're riding on board with him now. From 10th on the grid, this is Alex Sidwell in the Holden V2 Commodore, so a very good start for Alex. There though is the race leader from 3rd on the grid, Andy Robinson. Looking back now from the Renault Clio of Dave Pearce, and he's coming under attack from the number 76, Sierra Cosworth. And Rob Gilmore has gone through, or alongside at least, back on board with Dave Pearce. They're still hand in hand as they rise up now towards Schwantz Curve. To the right, look there, is number 76, Rob Gilmore, from near the back of the grid, and Rob gets through with a good move under braking on the way into McLean's Corner. Just behind them, there's the number 77 Ian Jordan Renault Clio, one of several cars running in Class D, a very competitive class that. At the end of lap 1 though, the race leader makes a mistake. 2nd time on the lap of the race, the 1st lap of the race that somebody in the lead has gone through the gravel trap, but this time Andy Robinson gets away with it, unlike Gary Preble, who lost a bunch of places through the first corner. That's Gary fighting back though. He comes past Alex Sidwell with the onboard camera to pick up a place, and now under attack for the lead of the race is Andy Robinson, because he got a slow run onto the start-finish straight after that run through the gravel trap. It's a very quick car that, but it's also very heavy and very difficult to slow down under braking, especially on cold tyres, and Andy almost paid for it there, but he holds the lead of the race. Dave Cockell hanging onto the tail of him in 2nd, 3rd and 4th are nose to tail as well. Vaughan Fletcher coming under attack now from Wayne Schofield, and the Suzuki Cappuccino goes through up to 3rd place. Gary Preble is 5th, and we got a spinner at Redgate Corner. It's Chris Whiteley, number 58 in the Seat Leon, one of the lesser experienced drivers in the field, but he went very well in the previous round at Anglesey. Time to get going again though, and look at this, smoking tyres from Rob Gilmore as he lunges down the inside of the Seat. I think it's Nick Hayes to pick up a place, and somebody else in trouble there is Steve Johnson in the Vauxhall Astra, who gets into a half spin at the old hairpin. Of course, they've not really had a chance to set the cars up because it was a damp, drying track for qualifying. This is the first time of the weekend that they've had a chance to run in anger. There's the 27 car struggling after its spin. There's number 64, Bryce Greenwood, the novice driver in the BMW 318T, gaining signatures for his licence. Now, this is a replay, and this is the spin for Chris Whiteley. And it was right in front of Dave Pearce with the onboard camera in the blue Renault Clio. Nice pirouette. He keeps it out of the gravel trap, crucially. And as long as he can keep the engine running, he should be able to get back in the race. And then there was more action in front of Dave. This was the 27 Vauxhall Astra running wide. Steve Johnson making a mistake at the old hairpin, easily done because they carry enormous speed down through the crane of curves into that right-hand corner. Steve gets going again. Meanwhile, here is the race leader making his way out of Hollywood Corner. Dave Cockell going with him, and up to third place now has come Gary Preble, who started on pole, then made the mistake on cold tyres into turn 1 at Redgate Corner, went all the way through the gravel trap, somehow got it back on the circuit, and from 7th place after that incident, he's back up to 3rd now. There in 4th place is Wayne Schofield, who's looking to wrap up the overall championship, having already won the Class D title this year. On board with the big Marcus Mantis of Doug Elwell, the silver number 14 car, going side by side with the equally enormous Ginetta of Keith Butcher, and Keith has to give second best to him on the way into Redgate Corner. Back on board with Dave Pearce. Lots of action here. This is the number 19 Ian Froggatt Subaru diving up the inside, and he gets at the inside of number 76 Rob Gilmore as well. Much more powerful car that, and it's charging through the order, so it gets past both of them. That in turn holds Rob up, and now Dave Pearce has got a better run through Hollywood Corner, and look at this, down through the Craner curve. Not many people overtake here, but that's a brave move. Or is there a problem for Rob Gilmore? Look, he's going very slowly, and the Sierra, I think, has lost a bit of speed there and may have a problem. Meanwhile, Ian Froggatt continues to charge up the order because he was one of the drivers that got caught up in the first corner incident and has dropped right to the back of the field. There's the Holden Commodore, which made a very good start to the race. Alex Sidwell still running in the top 6, at least he was, because he had a problem here. This was a replay on the way into the foggy S's. He just outbraked himself, struggled to find gears then in the car, and by the time he gets going again, I should imagine he's going to be most of the way down through the order, at least in the bottom half of this very large 31 car field. There is a problem for Robert Gilmore because the car has stopped, and that's a real shame after a very lively start for Rob, and dramas with that car at Anglesey as well, and it looks like he's out of the race this time. But there's the flying Gary Preble, and he's 3rd now, having started on pole, dropped to 7th on lap 1. Lights ablaze, he comes charging down through the Craner curves, and he's on the tail of Dave Cockell in the Ford Escort Cosworth. Dave hasn't done all the rounds of the championship this season, but he's a very experienced driver. There is one of the regular front runners in Class B, Ilsa Cox, and in front, a spinner right in front of her, and that's the number 57 Subaru Impreza. So that was Chris Huntley, number 57, who started this race on the 4th row of the grid. The master of Steve Putt, the black number 8 car, is starting to fight back after its run through the gravel trap. And there is Ilsa Cox in the Seat, and there is number 71. This is Mark Szydzinski in the Nissan, and Mark on the attack here. A very inexperienced race driver, unlike Ilsa, who's got more than 2 decades of experience behind the wheel. But coming onto her tail now is this Nissan, very quick car. Not a very quick car, though, I'm afraid, for Richard Hawke, and the Nissan Primera Super Tourer is ailing, going very slowly, maybe a recurrence of the gearbox problems. Looks like the end of the race for him. The rest of the field charges its way through, including Nick Hayes, but we're going to head now for a break. Welcome back to Donington Park. There, going through the S's, is the race leader, the big Ford Falcon of Andy Robinson, and there's just been, I think, a change for second. Yes, the orange Gary Preble Mitsubishi Evo just going through under braking to get ahead of Dave Cockell in this, the final round of the Arrowpak Euro Saloon and Sportscar Championship, the final weekend anyway, because there's another race to come in this double-header event. So back up to 2nd place then for Gary Preble, who's quicker than everybody else in qualifying. He's a multiple race winner, and he has fought back from 7th place. There is the race leader coming up to lap Bryce Greenwood's BMW, the novice driver, that big V8 supercar all the way from Australia, being driven with great verve by Andy Robinson, but Gary Preble is coming back at him. There's Rex Stamp in the number 2 Lotus, which is working its way through the order. Vaughan Fletcher's dropped back in the Subaru Impreza. Coming good though is Derek Palmer, that was him, charging up towards the tail end of the top 6 in the Nissan Primera Super Tourer. You're on board with Mark Szydzinski, the Russian driver, complete novice before the start of this season, having only been a gamer, being a very good driver on computer games, but never having done it for real. But now here he is, doing very well, and he's got up the inside of Ilsa Cox and gains a place here. So he's running well, he's in the top 10 in the Nissan 370Z. Of course, he's never ever been here to Donington Park before. It's his first ever season of racing. That was Rex Stamp, who is in the top 6 now in the Lotus, going well. Back on board with Mark Szydzinski, and going past a slower car there. That's Ilsa Cox, who he just overtook. And the ailing car is number 3. That's Jonathan Fall in one of the Mitsubishis. The Evolution 8 going very slowly. Back on board with Mark, climbing uphill now. And he's onto the tail of Steve Putt, almost. The Mazda RX-7, which was one of the cars which had dramas in the very first corner of the race. Went through the gravel trap, I think in avoidance of others. and he's now fighting his way back up through the order. That's Andy Roby in the BMW. Very lovely looking car, that. Very quick driver, former kart racer, and a very experienced saloon driver these days, Andy Roby, and he'll be looking to win Class C. Back on board with Wolfgang right then. This is the other Nissan 370Z, and he is flying, and he's on the tail now of the Scottish driver Derek Palmer. Draws alongside the Nissan, under-braking on the way into turn 1 at Redgate Corner, and he goes through, and his next target is going to be Rex Stamp in the Lotus. So good driving this by the German. Again, this is his first occasion here. Now this is a replay of the start. Look to the left, Gary Preble in the orange Mitsubishi Evo from pole position. And it looks all good and tidy up to this point, but he just carries too much speed in. Others are locking up tyres behind. Gary goes into the gravel, and there's a spinner there. That's Ian Froggatt's Subaru. That nudges into Keith Butcher. Avoiding action is the black Mazda of Steve Putt, so that's why they went into the gravel trap. And the Nissan was delayed. The Nissan with the onboard camera was delayed by all of that as well. And there, a big lock-up from Rob Gilmore. Had a very lively start to the race. That was him diving up the insides of Dave Pearce. They go past Ian Froggatt's stricken Subaru. But I'm afraid since then, Rob Gilmore's car has expired. There, running very well, leading his class by a mile once again, is Wayne Schofield. And if he can just get a decent result here, he will do enough to secure the overall championship title for the season, in his first full season of the championship. Gary Preble then absolutely flying now, trying to catch up the race leader. He's in second place. There's Dave Cockell in third position, just lapping the Ian Jordan Renault Clio. On board with Ilse Cox, she's second in Class B at the moment. Up ahead of her is the Nissan, one of the Nissans. It's number 71, Mark Szutzinski, who just drives past Steve Putt in the RX-7. Maybe a bit too easily, actually. I wonder if there's a drama developing there. There's Ilse Cox, who just saw the onboard pictures from. Another very steady drive from her. She likes Donington Park, goes well here, and now she slices past the Mazda, and I think that is developing an issue. It looked a bit too easy, that, so Ilse Cox about to head down through the Craner curves. There is the number 62 Holden Commodore, having a bit of a tussle now with the BMW of Andy Roby as they go through Hollywood Corner. On board with Alex Sidwell, who had a great start. He went from 10th to 4th in the first few corners of the race. He's dropped back a bit since then, but he's still running well up in the top 10. That's a Class C car, Andy Roby. Should be less powerful on paper than the Class A Holden that Alex Sidwell is driving, but there's not very much between them as they climb out of the old hairpin up through Schwantz Curve and into McLean's Corner now. This right-hander. Andy Roby just dropping back a little bit, and that is one of the Subaru Imprezas. Now, this is somebody charging up the order, having had a mishap through the first corner. Ian Froggatt was one of the cars that spanned through the first corner, and he's starting to charge his way back up. He's picked up quite a few places in recent laps. And now we've got a challenge here between two very different cars. You've got, well, in front of them, the Nissan of Germany's Wolfgang Reip, and now Scotland's Derek Palmer dives down the inside of Rex Stamp to pick up a place. So these three battling on the fringes of the top 6. And that's the Class B car overtaking Rex Stamp's Class A Lotus Elise. Down through the Craner curves they run. Front right locks up a little bit for Derek Palmer. As we heard at the start of the programme, he's not had many outings in this car. He's driving it very well indeed here at Donington Park. Good move that. Both of them now trying to chase down Wolfgang Reip. There's Ian Froggatt, and he's got Andy Jordan behind him. Andy, the outgoing champion, the number 1. Not the quickest car in the field, but he kept winning his class last year, which is why he carries the number 1 as the overall champion from 2011. Here's the Holden on the tail now of Keith Butcher. There's another car, the Red Ginetta, which went through the gravel trap through the first corner. The Holden went very well at the start of the race, but had a mishap through the S's on about lap 3. As we just saw a glimpse there of Doug Elwood in the Marcus Mantis, who's another driver who's picked up quite a few places in this race. Alex Sidwell in the Holden then, trying to make up for his own error. Oh, and contact there on the way to Cobbies Corner. Just clipped the left rear corner of the Ginetta of Keith Butcher. Come through Cobbies Corner. Only a glancing blow, nothing too serious. And now Alex Sidwell charges through, and they both go past a very slow-looking Steve Putt in the RX-7, which is about to expire, I think. Ilse Cox in the Seat there, already having overtaken him and pulled right away from him now. So Ilse Cox, for the time being, is on her own. And why is she on her own? Because Mark Szutzinski is going into the pits. That's why he's got a drama with the Nissan. So into the pits, I'm afraid, after a decent start to the race for the Russian driver. So the two cars she was battling with, within a lap or so, have both hit trouble. So Ilse Cox on her own. Dave Pearce is not very often on his own. He's just been lapped by the big Ford Falcon of the race leader, Andy Robinson, who's thundering past everybody. Enormous speed differential between him and some of these slower Class D and Class C cars. And is that him out braking himself again? Yes, it is. He goes through the gravel trap for the second time in this race at the Foggy S's. Looking back now from Dave Pearce's car, this is the second place orange Mitsubishi Evo lapping him, which means he's not far behind the leader. No, he's right behind him. Look, there's less than a second between them. So that mishap from the Ford Falcon has cost him more time. He still holds the lead of the race, but coming back at him now is Gary Preble. So first and second covered by about 0.8 of a second now. There's another of our Seats. That's Mark Todd, who's going well in Class C at the moment, having come up from 23rd on the grid. Mark currently running second in the class behind Andy Roby's BMW as we look at this diminishing gap between the top two. Gary Preble hunting down the white Ford Falcon of Andy Robinson. On board with Dave Pearce now. He's on the tail of the Seat Leon. On his tail is the Dave Cockle car though, lapping him. So that's the silver car which runs in third place. The Cosworth spitting out flames as he slows down, jumps down the gears on the way into McLean's corner, accelerates again, working his way through the traffic. So that's the third place car lapping this bunch of cars now, and the Subaru Impreza runs wide there, and that's number 42 who loses a place to the man with the onboard camera. So Danny Precious losing a place, and just in front of them is Nick Hayes as well, but Danny Precious has got more power than the Renault Clio, and back he comes down the straights, down into the braking zone though. Dave Pearce is very good, tries to go back around the outside of him and does so. Great driving that. Different classes these two, they're having a tremendous old battle, and coming up to lap both of them now is Wayne Schofield, and the back marker doesn't see him, almost squeezes him onto the grass. Back on board with Dave Pearce. Through comes Danny Precious. What's happened to Wayne Schofield? I reckon he got clobbered there as he tried to lap the bigger Subaru. Here he comes. He's made it through, but I think he's been on the grass all the way down the start-finish straight. And it's so small, that car, when he gets alongside some of the bigger machinery, they just can't see him in the mirrors. He gets through now, and it looks like he's got through that unscathed. He's lost time, but the car looks okay. Back on board with Dave Pearce, coming back at Danny Precious now. There is Danny, charging along, having a really good race here in the Subaru Impreza, but Dave Pearce is equal to him in a very different car. They're both being lapped now. That's Chris Whiteley getting a lap back. He's 2 laps down, and the other car was the Nissan of Wolfgang Reich. There's all sorts of lappery going on down there now. This is the race leader. He's got some lappery to deal with, trying to get around Andy Roby. Oh, he's done it again through the gravel trap for Andy Robinson. Not quite as severely this time, but it's going to cost him momentum now as he comes onto the start-finish straight. There he is to the right of the picture. The race leader, they've got 2 cars to try and lap, and Gary Preble has got a much better run here on the way down into Redgate Corner. He's going to go down the inside. They both go down the inside of Andy Roby, and through he comes into the lead of the race. Gary Preble there pounces, first chance, first time of asking, and through he goes, and that was because Andy Robinson, I reckon the third time in this race, just couldn't slow down the big V8, couldn't get it into the Foggy S's, and went through the gravel trap. His tyres must be suffering all the gravel he's picked up. Certainly his momentum suffered, and that was why Gary charged past. So from 7th place, he's back up into the lead of the race. But this is the stage of the race where they've got lots of traffic to deal with. Gary Preble locks up. Andy Robinson is right on his tail, and we've got a race on our hands now as we head for a break. Welcome back to Donington Park. What's been a very, very lively first race of the weekend. Chris Whiteley there in the Seat, trying to come back after a spin earlier in the race. There's Dave Pearce, who's been involved in much of the action, as he was actually in the previous round at Anglesey. And Chris Whiteley's Seat is a lap down. Dave Pearce is trying to hang on to the Mitsubishi Evo just ahead of both of them, which is the number 42 car driven by Danny Precious. And we had a change of lead just before we went to the break from that man charging along, Gary Preble, using all of the track and then some in the 4-wheel drive Mitsubishi Evo. Less horsepower than the car behind him, but overall slightly better handling, and he's able to match, and at the moment better, Andy Robinson in that number 6 Ford Falcon. Gary Preble got pole position, went off the road at Redgate Corner, through the gravel trap in the very first corner, kept it going, dropped to 7th place, very quickly fought back up to 3rd, and then he'd just been chipping and chipping away over the last 6 or 7 laps, and finally got his chance when Andy Robinson went through the gravel trap himself, not at Redgate Corner, but at the Foggy S's. Nothing between them though. Andy Robinson hanging on to the race leader. There's Chris Boone, who's picked up quite a few places in this race. He qualified back in 22nd in the damp, but he's picked up about a dozen places in this race, leading Class E, and that is the Renault Megane in drama. Maurice Hayden who has joined the championship as a guest this weekend. I'm afraid that car looks like it's expired. That was Derek Palmer running in the top 6. He's got ahead now of number 2, Rex Stamp in the Lotus Elise. Rex, who also has had to fight back from a poor qualifying, started the race down in 17th place, but it looks like he's on his way to a top 6 finish. Very quick driver and a very quick car at that. And the Marcus Mantis there, number 14, Doug Elwood, is a car which is on a mission. It's come from 20th on the grid and is into the top 10 now, or just on the fringes of the top 10, and it's hunting down Ilse Cox. It's a much more powerful car, but it's also heavier, not quite as nimble as Ilse's Seat, but he's catching at the moment, so there's a battle going on there. We've still got this battle for the lead of the race, but Gary Preble's just inched away, although there's always traffic to consider in the closing stages of these races with such an eclectic mixture of cars, from the fastest to the slowest car in qualifying, albeit in slightly damp conditions this morning. There was an 18-second difference, so you can see the closing speeds when they're lapping some of the slower cars can be very, very rapid indeed. Just saw Dave Cockell in 3rd place there. In 4th position, that is Wayne Schofield. If he stays 4th, he's going to do enough to wrap up the championship, the overall championship, with a race to spare. There is the Escort Cosworth of Dave Cockell. He's lapping Andy Roby, and that BMW, which is going very well indeed, leading Class C fairly comfortably, leading it from several drivers, including Nick Hayes in the Seat, who's already wrapped up that championship. There is the Wolfgang Reip car, which is up into 5th place now, going really well on his first ever visit to Donington Park. Right, there's the Seat of Ilse Cox, and there is the Marcus Mantis. He's absolutely flying after her. Ilse Cox, he's not going to be the easiest driver in the world to overtake, though. Very experienced, very smooth, and very good racecraft. Now we're going to see a replay here from Dave Pearce. This is on the way down into the foggy S's, and that was Danny Precious. Was he locking up? Was it a mistake, or did the engine seize? Either way, the car, as you see a replay from the lock-off camera at that corner, went off the road, and Dave Pearce had been chasing the Subaru. Great battle that. Has now got the track to himself, and that was Ian Jordan's Renault Clio with a separate incident pulling off the circuit as well. Another replay from Dave Pearce. This is on another lap into the same corner, and that's the Lotus. Oh dear, Rex Stamp's Lotus has expired. He's had troubles with that the last couple of meetings, and from a top 6 finish, it looks like that's another retiree. Looking at the 1st and 2nd place cars, still less than a second between them, but Andy Robinson can't fight back at the moment. There's Wayne Schofield, and he's been caught now by the 5th place Wolfgang Reip Nissan, which is about to lap this white BMW of Andy Roby. And yes, he's only about 1.5 seconds behind Wayne Schofield. That's a Class A car. Wayne is in the little 1300cc Suzuki Cappuccino. It should probably be called a Suzuki Espresso, the way he's flying along, and punching well above his weight, but being caught by this Nissan 370Z in the closing stages of the race. Dave Cockell in the Escort's not that far in front of them in 3rd. So that's 3rd, that's 4th, the Suzuki Cappuccino, and quicker than both of them at the moment is Wolfgang Reip. Wolfie going really well in 5th place in the Nissan. On board now with the Marcus Mantis of Doug Elwood. He's trying to go around the outside of Ilse Cox. He's caught her up very quickly indeed. He's charged his way through from the 10th row of the grid, but Ilse Cox fends him off, keeps the inside line, hugging the inside curbs now on the way into Hollywood Corner. They're going to be absolutely side by side through there. Eventually Marcus Mantis has to give way, and Doug Elwood has to tuck back in behind. So Doug Elwood having a charging drive here, but of course the higher up the order you get, the harder it becomes to overtake the better drivers and the better cars, and Ilse Cox is giving him a real battle here. And there is Dave Cockell lapping now the number 42 Danny Precious car, which had a spin. And speaking of which, another Subaru has a spin. That's Ian Froggatt with his 2nd spin of the race. Real shame that, because he'd fought back well from the first corner incident. Keeps it going, the rear wheel spin. The grass is still very damp, but he's lost more time and more places. And we're about to see a replay of that spin right in front of the Nissan of Mark Szosinski, who's gone back out after his visit to the pits, and he's just outside the top 10. So Ian's got going again. There he is for the 2nd time. And back on his tail is Andy Jordan, who's looking for a top 3 finish in Class D here. Qualified brilliantly, did Andy, in the damp conditions, punching well above his weight, just on the fringes of the top 10. Back on board with Andy Robinson, and look, he's right on the tail of Gary Preble, who gets a 4-wheel drift on coming out of the S's and onto the start-finish line. They're about to lap Dave Pearce in the Renault Clio. He stays well out of the way, looking back from Dave Pearce's car. Through come the 2 leaders to lap him for the 2nd time in this race, and Andy Robinson is right on the tail of the race leader, but he leaves his braking too late, gets out of shape, loses a bit of momentum through the apex of the corner, keeps it going, keeps on the track, but just loses half a car length or so. Maybe a chance of attacking on the way into Hollywood. Yes, Gary Preble looks to be the quicker of the 2 down through at the Craner Curves. It's his first ever time at Donington Park, Gary Preble. You wouldn't know it to look at him. On board with Wolfgang Reip in 5th place, closing up to the 4th place car of Wayne Schofield. Later on the brakes, looks for the inside line on the way to Redgate Corner, but Wayne won't let him go. You think Wayne might be thinking about championship points. No chance. He wants to finish as high up the order as he can, and he fends off this Nissan. Another giant killing act ensuing here from Wayne Schofield. He did much the same in the previous round at Anglesey. In fact, he's been doing it all year long, any Class D car, to get anywhere near overall wins and overall podiums this season. But Wolfgang Reip is driving really, really well for somebody that's never raced until this year. Fantastic job. Everybody at RJN Motorsport preparing the car very well indeed. Andy Jordan on the tail of Ian Froggatt here, and Andy gets a good run, and Ian, I think, has got a problem and pulls to the side. Had a couple of spins in that car. On board with Doug Elwood. This is the battle with Ilse Cox. He's been stuck behind her for a few laps. He caught her up very quickly, but Ilse's racecraft has been excellent, and she's just been putting that Seat in the right places, and the Doug Elwood car has not been able to find a way through until maybe now. He's got the inside line. You're right on board with him. Again into Redgate Corner, one of the favourite overtaking spots on the circuit. Through he comes. You see it from Ilse Cox, but he runs wide. Ilse comes back at him on the way to Hollywood, but the big Marcus Mantus closes the door and finally makes his way through to pick up a position. So a great little tussle that between the pair of them for 7th and 8th positions respectively. There is the race leader, almost home and dry now. Goes through the corner where he almost lost the race right at the very beginning, and he's pulling away now from Andy Robinson, who got really close to him through the traffic a couple of laps ago. There's Dave Cockell in the silver number 5 Escort Cosworth, and he's getting delayed here by the traffic coming past the big Ginetta of Keith Butcher, and he can't afford to lose too much time because he's not that far ahead of the Wayne Schofield Wolfgang Reip battle. The Suzuki Cappuccino within a couple of seconds of him, and right behind the Suzuki is the Nissan still of Wolfgang Reip. Keith Butcher having a decent run in this race, though. He may have been lapped, but he's running in 9th position, which is a good effort for somebody who almost went out of the race at turn 1. And look at Andy Roby here, flying in that BMW, and that's a brave move to get past the apprentice of Danny Precious. He doesn't want to lose time, and he's marching towards a Class C victory. Very determined driving. You don't see too many gaps down through the Craner Curves. There is Derek Palmer, and he's had a really good race. He's running in 6th place in the Nissan Primera, and he's on his way to Class B victory. Here, though, is Gary Preble, and he's about to go and take the checkered flag, and he wins the first race of the weekend here at Donington Park after a tremendous fight back. 2nd place goes to Andy Robinson, and 3rd position is going to go to Dave Cockell. What a fantastic battle the pair of these have had, and Gary Preble is absolutely delighted with that result. Andy draws alongside to congratulate him. There's a silver Escort of Dave Cockell in 3rd, and Wolfgang Reip at 4th place. He got past Wayne Schofield right at the end of the race. So Wayne Schofield 5th place in the end, but he still wins Class D, and that means that he's done enough to secure the overall championship crown with a race to spare. Let's take a look then at the overall results. Gary Preble, Andy Robinson and Dave Cockell the top 3. Wolfgang Reip, brilliant drive to 4th place. Wayne Schofield is the champion in 5th. Derek Palmer, Doug Elwood, Ilse Cox, Keith Butcher and Alex Sidwell round out the top 10.
Bit too hot-headed into the first corner, and yeah, same old scenario with cold tyres. And yeah, way too hot into the first corner, lost the back end, went sideways into the gravel trap, and kind of thought it might be all over from that point, but managed to keep it skipping through the gravel, and I think I went from about 1st to 7th. But yeah, made it a very interesting race, and obviously I was still learning the circuit because I haven't actually raced here before, so yeah, it makes the heart go a couple of laps, especially through chasing Andy, and I knew I was a little bit quicker down through the Craner Curves. There's not many other places I could catch him. It's always the tight and twisty bits like a gain, and yeah, made it very enjoyable.
I knew that Gary Preble wouldn't be too far behind. I was just waiting to see the orange flash behind us, and I had a couple of off-road excursions, just struggling with the brakes on that, and that allowed him to catch up on us. Thoroughly enjoyed it though. I had a real battle. When he got past, I could see him racing, and I knew he was right on the limit, sliding about. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I struggle on the tight, twisty circuits. The likes of here, Snedden and Silverstone circuits like that, it's just a lovely car. Absolutely love it. Lucky man to drive this.
And well done, Wayne Schofield. Today's result just about guarantees the title. We'll let Wayne explain the maths.
If I didn't finish tomorrow's race, I think Andy Robinson can come equal on points if he wins and gets fastest lap. But because I've had more wins through the season, I think that would still tip the championship in my favour. but I am going to race tomorrow, make no mistake about it, and I'm going to race properly as well. It's been a really good year actually. The other competitors in the championship, very nice people, very nice comments about driving car and everything really. It's been a really good year. I've really enjoyed it. Because the car is tiny, there is a lot of the David and Goliath. It stirs up a lot of enthusiasm from the spectators. Some of the spectators' comments have been brilliant. Fantastic, best race I've seen in years. And when you're scrapping with the Holden or perhaps the Falcon, a big brutal 700 horsepower car, and I've got flyweight 1300cc. It's been great. It's been really good.
So what a great way to start the weekend, and there's more to come. Join us after the break for highlights from race 2.